months of buildup, we are finally here. Election Day 2020. New York One has reporters across the city focused on the voting process, from Election Day issues to protecting our voting freedoms. Aside from the presidential race, we also have a very contentious battle for Congress unfolding. And we want to begin at the top of the ticket. Our Gloria Pazmino monitoring the latest in the race for the White House. She joins us now with an update. Hi, Gloria.
Hi, Kristen, and as you said, it is finally here. Election Day in New York, Election Day in America. We are finally coming to the end of what has been a very long process, a very heated political season, an election between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, who have been hitting the campaign trail for the last couple of days up until last night and continuing this morning. Vice President Joe Biden is out in Pennsylvania, a battleground state, which has emerged as a key part of this fight, which could extend beyond tonight. The president is back at the White House after rallying in several states, including some of the battleground states last night. He is expected to watch tonight's returns at the White House along with his supporters and family. And as I mentioned, Kristen, it is election night, but we are not certain that we will be seeing the results tonight. We're not certain that we will be seeing a winner tonight, and that has been a key theme throughout this election season. We have heard the president cast doubt on the viability of the electoral process, the fact that so many people have voted via absentee ballot in the last couple of months. Obviously, our country's still in the grips of the pandemic. So we are really in for a night unlike any other. It is a moment unlike any other in the history of our country. And people, as we know, turning out in droves to their polling sites, not just here in New York, but across the nation. Millions of people have submitted absentee ballots. Over 1 million New Yorkers right here at home showed up to the polls to vote early, and we see that they're out there today casting those votes for people who waited for Election Day. They say they want to be part of the process, so they're out there today. And we know that we expect both candidates, President Donald Trump and Vice President Joe Biden, to continue to hit the trail, especially on those key battleground states throughout the day.
All right, hours left. Thanks, Gloria. Let's turn to our local races now. Rocco Bertuccio is in St. George, keeping an eye on the contentious Staten Island congressional race, Max Rose versus Nicole Malliotakis, for a district that covers all of Staten Island and parts of Brooklyn. Good afternoon, Rocco.
Hey, good afternoon, Kristen. Turnout here has been pretty steady all day long at this polling location in St. George. No long lines to get inside the polling site, except for early this morning, right before the site first opened. The race for the 11th congressional district has been bitter. It's been nasty and very expensive. One of the most expensive congressional races in the country. This is also the city's only swing congressional district, so there is a chance that Republicans could flip it back to red. Incumbent Democratic Congressman Max Rose running for a second term in Congress. This district is one of the more conservative parts of the city. President Trump, for example, beat Hillary Clinton here by about 10 points in 2016. So Rose has really been touting his more moderate credentials and trying to distance himself from the more liberal wing of the party. Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis is his Republican challenger. President Trump has endorsed her. Several police unions have endorsed her campaign as well, and she has made law and order and crime a big part of her campaign. She's also tried to tie Max Rose to Mayor de Blasio because the mayor is very unpopular in this area. There have been a lot of negative ads in this campaign on both sides of this campaign. Here's what some voters have to say about the candidates and this race.
Malliotakis, I believe, is the better candidate. I'm voting for Malliotakis in Trump 2020. I support them highly since they support business, they support America, and I'm proud to be an American.
We voted for Max Rose, so we feel like he matches like our values. We're Latino, come from an immigrant family, so yes. We just want somebody who is for everyone.
Was it tough making up your mind with all the ads and all the different negativity in the campaign?
Not really. Just you look past all the rhetoric, and and just vote with your gut. Look at the platform, see what they're doing, and make a decision.
You might recall that Malliotakis ran for mayor in 2017, and even though she lost the election by about 40 percentage points, she did get about 2/3 of the vote in this district. So that's an example of how popular she is here in this borough. Max Rose says that he has had a successful first term in office, pointing to things like the 9/11 victim compensation fund that he worked on, and also securing federal dollars to fight the opioid epidemic here on Staten Island. Chris, and I should point out, there are about 50,000 voters who requested absentee ballots in this district. So if the results tonight are as close as they are expected to be, it could be days before we get the official results and an official winner declared in this race, when you consider all those absentee ballots that could make the difference and will need to be counted.
A lot of eyes on that one. Rocco, thanks so much. Let's head over now to Manhattan. Our Roger Clark, he's at a polling site in Harlem. The day did get off to a bumpy start here as the location opened late. Let's see how it is now. Good afternoon, Roger.
Yeah, Chris, it's been an interesting day. You know, we started our day over on the west side in Harlem, or you want to call it Hamilton Heights, and there was a school over there where people were lined up at 5:30 a.m. waiting for those doors to open at 6 o'clock. And the doors there did open just around basically when they were supposed to at 6 o'clock. Over here, a little bit of a different situation at PS 7. The doors didn't open at 6. It was a little bit of a delay with some equipment, some kind of incident going on. So they were able to figure it out. And there was lines around the block, but then those lines dissipated very quickly, and the rest of the day has been quite smooth. If you could check it out, it's been busy too. It's been just basically, as we're standing here now, just person after person after person, neighbors here in East Harlem coming to cast their ballots. We got a chance to talk to some folks, including one of the local district leaders here, to talk about what this means to come out and vote today.
There was a little hiccup in the beginning, but people are energized, they're excited, they're eager to vote. They understand the importance of what is on the line here, and I'm really glad that people recognize that, because they have to know that they're the stewards of this nation's democracy, and they're participating, and that's important.
Everybody's vote counts, whether you vote for Trump or Biden, everybody's votes count. Your vote is power. Everybody's vote is power. So everybody get out here, vote, please.
Yeah, and they have. That was Carl Charleston. He was a New York One viewer, really nice guy, and he's exactly right. And that's exactly what's been going on here all day. And Chris, it's reminiscent to me, and I was talking with Pat earlier about it, but it reminds me a lot, the spirit of this particular election year reminding me of the first time President Obama ran, and we were up here in Harlem at a polling site, and it was almost like a party-like atmosphere. And considering what we're going through right now here in the country and here in New York City with the pandemic, folks not necessarily feeling their best these days for sure, but today everyone's got a smile on their face, and they're excited to get here. They're excited to get in there. We actually caught one guy who was his first time voting. He had never voted, but he felt like this was the year to do it, and he did it. So interesting to see the difference in people's kind of demeanors and what they're and the way they're handling themselves as they come to vote today.
Yeah, and with so many people coming out to vote, it's really been encouraging. That's the bright spot of this election. Let's see where everything goes from here. Roger, thanks so much. We'll be checking back with you.
Yeah.
And as we look ahead now to after the election day wraps up, both the governor and the mayor are urging people to be calm, no matter what the outcome of this election is. But stores around town have boarded up their windows and their doors, fearing destructive rioting. The NYPD says it's ready to protect both property and New Yorkers' voting rights. And our Dan Rivoli is in Times Square, so let's check in with him. Hi, Dan.
That's right. Businesses not taking any chances. The plywood is being put up on businesses here in Times Square. It has been going on since early this morning into the afternoon, and businesses have been doing this for days leading up to Election Day in preparation for any protests that could lead to potential property damage and theft. And here in Times Square, we're talking big companies, AT&T, Disney, the Hard Rock Cafe, and the M&M store, all putting up plywood and barricading their storefronts. But it is also being done on some smaller businesses here in Times Square, Irish pubs, an art gallery, and in jewelry stores in the nearby Diamond District. We visited the Diamond District, spoke to a manager of a jewelry store, said he's worked many election days, but none like this. The building owner has been hired a crew to put up the wooden barricades on the storefront. He had to remove the jewelry from the windows. It hurts business, but he said it's better safe than sorry. How long have you been manager here?
Oh, God, it's been over 30 years.
But this is not your first election day.
This is not my first election day, but it's my first time experiencing something like this. So this is a nightmare I did not want to dream about. It's horrible. You know, and I feel for all the businesses on the street. A lot of us all know each other. We're in this together. And unfortunately, we're all suffering together.
Earlier today on New York One, Police Commissioner Dermot Shea saying police will be out in force monitoring and policing protests and making sure property damage and theft does not occur and arresting those people suspected of it if it does happen. Here in Midtown, not just Times Square, police in uniform have been fanned out over the area. There are metal barricades that have been set up. Later in the day, Mayor de Blasio commenting on the businesses who are taking these precautions by barricading their storefronts. Take a listen to what the mayor had to say.
We had a few days that were really extraordinary and painful. And then, as per usual, New Yorkers got right back to living our lives, got right back to work. Stores reopened. I don't want to make it more than it is. And also what you're seeing, Henry, is happening around the country. We're not the only place where people in central business districts are boarding up out of caution because they know it's an unprecedented moment. But then this moment will pass.
And it's not just businesses here in Times Square, luxury brands, big corporations, but it's happening all over the city, from Fordham Road in the Bronx down to Soho in Manhattan. That's the latest here in Times Square. Dan Rivoli, New York One. Back to you.
Precautionary measures we hope won't be needed. All right. Thanks, Dan. We appreciate it. Voters across the city have been posting to social media, and our Lindsay Tuckman has been checking it out and joins us now with what she's found. Hi, Lindsay.
Hey there, Kristen. It's certainly been a year where we found our community virtually, and that's still the case today. While many people waited in line to vote, others headed online to share their thoughts, their excitement, and their, well, nervousness. We asked our viewers to share on Twitter what their election day looks like. One person tweeted, "Voted early, took a paid sick day off work just for the election." So that person is using the day off not even to head to the polls. Another person talking about their plans for the day, saying, "My wine is ready to go, my iPod is charged for the occasional walk, and Crumble Cookies is loaded for delivery." Stress eating and perhaps drinking seems to be a common theme among folks today. Now, for those New Yorkers who got up early this morning to vote, or perhaps plan to stay up late tonight like many of us do, you probably could use a cup of coffee, right? Well, many restaurants across the city are offering special election day deals, and one of those deals can substitute as your "I voted" sticker if you didn't get one. The Italian spot Settepani in Harlem and Williamsburg is offering up these voter chinos today. Yes, that's a voter cappuccino, a foamy and patriotic way to stay caffeinated. Customers are sharing photos on Instagram of their voter chinos while urging others to get out and vote if they haven't. And do you know who probably could use a cup of coffee today? Rapper and native New Yorker Cardi B. She posted on her Instagram this morning that she got up at the crack of dawn to cast her ballot.
Vote, because you will feel like I don't know, it feels good after you voted. You feel like you just did something. I don't know, I swear, it's like a weird feeling. So just go out there. My district where I was at, the community center, was nice and warm. I hope your community center is nice and warm and comfortable.
I like the stickers on the nose. That's a good look. Please continue to send us your election day photos and videos, but don't forget it is illegal in the state of New York to post a photo of a completed, filled out ballot. So please don't send us any of those ballot selfies. Back to you, Kristen.
Good advice. Thanks, Lindsay. Mayor de Blasio says there are no specific threats that should cause alarm on this election day. No major protests are scheduled at this point. And he says the NYPD will be ready if anything pops up. However, he does add that protesters are also responsible when it comes to keeping things peaceful.
We will not allow any violence. I want to be clear once again about this. And it's the responsibility of the government to step in if anyone intends to do violence or anyone commits an act of violence. But I also want to say to those who may choose to protest how much you have important responsibility as well. As you see anyone suggesting violence or starting to act in a violent manner, move away from them, separate from them, report them.
The mayor adds that demonstrators should not allow anyone to hijack their message. Our Amy Yency is at Bayside High School, which is being used as a polling site in Queens. Amy, how's it going so far?
Things are running smoothly here at Bayside High School in Queens. The doors opened right on time, we're told, at 6 a.m. But even before that, at 4 a.m., there were already poll workers here setting up, making sure that everything runs smoothly. And so far from what we have seen, it seems to be there isn't much of a wait at all for people arriving to vote on this election day. As soon as someone walks through the door, there's someone there to greet them, direct them where they should go, hand them their ballot, and pretty much easy breezy from there. We're seeing a steady stream of people coming to vote, but they're not waiting. I'd say about 10 minutes in total from when they enter the door, cast their ballot, and then they leave. People tell us that have been working here during early voting, they expect that as the day progresses, more and more people will show up. But for now, a very orderly situation here in Bayside High School. That is the very latest from here in Queens. Amy Yency, back to you.
Amy, thank you. Control of the U.S. Senate is also at stake on this election day. Republicans are fighting to hold on to their majority against a surge of Democratic candidates confronting the president's allies. Massive amounts of cash have been flowing to Democrats from millions of Americans, while Republicans are tapping deep-pocketed donors to shore up GOP senators. Securing the Senate majority will be vital for the winner of the presidency. Senators confirm administration nominees, including the cabinet, and they can propel or stall the White House agenda. Republicans control the chamber now, 53 to 47, so 3 or 4 seats will determine party control, depending on who wins the presidency, because a vice president can break a tie. The countdown is on. We are just hours away from getting the first results of this election. Our Samantha Jo Roth is in Wilmington, Delaware. That's where Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden will spend election night. Samantha Jo, let's talk about what we can expect.
Yeah, it might seem a little quiet here in Delaware, but, you know, in just a couple of hours, we should be seeing a lot of Biden supporters filling into this parking lot here. Now, the stage is set just behind me here at the Chase Center, where, former Vice President Joe Biden will give a speech potentially tonight. And, you know, this is also the very place where he accepted the Democratic nomination back in August. But before all of that, he has a very busy campaign schedule today. He is crisscrossing the state of Pennsylvania, a key state for him that he's said over the last couple of days and weeks. They've really been laser focused on this, and he'll finish out his campaign right where it all started, with a visit to his hometown of Scranton and also Philadelphia. Now, Jill Biden, his wife, will travel to Tampa and St. Petersburg. His running mate Kamala Harris will travel to Detroit, Michigan. Her husband, Doug Emhoff, will get out the vote in Columbus, Ohio. So you can really get an idea there of which states are very important to this campaign in their path to 270 electoral votes.
Pennsylvania, 2008 and 2012, you placed your trust in Barack and me. Now in 2020, I'm asking for your trust again in me and Kamala. And by the way, she is one smart, bright, tough woman, man.
Now, it appears the Biden campaign has learned a lot of valuable lessons out of 2016. They've been really focused on building this blue wall back up. Those are the upper Midwestern states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania that, Hillary Clinton was not able to win last time around. So they've really had their eye on those states. And they also are looking at a few red-leaning states that they think they might have the potential to flip. We are talking about Arizona, Georgia, Texas. So, those could be some early indicators tonight of how the night is going for the former vice president if he is able to pick up a few of those states that he may not have expected to. We'll send it back to you.
All right, just the fact that we're even talking about Texas being in the mix. All right, Samantha Joe, enjoy the day. I know it's a busy one. Thanks so much. President Trump is running on some of his signature promises from 2016 to prove he deserves 4 more years in the White House. Let's go to our Em Nguyen. She's outside the White House right now. She's been watching all of it on this election day. Good afternoon, Em.
Good afternoon, Kristen. Many times talking with the president's supporters, they tell me the president did what he promised he would do and set out to do back in 2016. In his recent rallies, President Trump highlights the economy just as he did in 2016, though right now unemployment currently stands at about 7.9% compared to around 4.7% when he took office. But president's supporters remain loyal, pointing to what they believe are the president's successes, including the 2017 tax cuts for families and corporations, dozens of conservative court appointments, and stricter immigration policies.
And if I don't sound like a typical Washington politician, it's because I'm not a politician. If I don't always play by the rules of the Washington establishment, it's because I was elected to fight for you, and I fight harder than any president has ever fought for his people.
In rallies, the president makes sure to attack his opponent Joe Biden while highlighting support for farmers and repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. Tonight, the president's close allies and supporters will be here at the White House for the election night party. They're inviting about 400 people indoors who will be tested for COVID-19 first. That's amid D.C. having restrictions that prohibit indoor gatherings of more than 50 people, yet federal properties are the exception. Kristen.
Let's talk a little bit about the polls that we've been seeing. They put Joe Biden ahead in a number of these battleground states, but we all remember polls back in 2016. Then candidate Trump was also behind. So what are we looking at, and what should we be watching tonight?
Well, what it would mean for America, I guess.
Well, skeptics think it could be a repeat of 2016. That could still happen again, especially as President Trump now is the incumbent. So a lot more pull with his base and not an outsider anymore like he was in 2016. And because Clinton around this time was ahead by about 10 points, and Biden is ahead now by about 11 points. So not that much more. But the difference is between Biden and Clinton is that for some of the president's support that he had in 2016 among independents and seniors, Biden is actually now polling higher than then candidate Trump, which goes to show that Biden in these swing states could be in favor of those independents and those seniors. So the president's chances seem slightly slimmer than they did in 2016 if we are comparing Clinton with Biden against the chances with President Trump.
And let's talk about this. There's this thought that the president may declare this premature victory tonight ahead of the official results. As you know, Pennsylvania will take some time to count if that's what it comes down to. So what steps can we expect to see after that, if that does happen?
If that does happen, some analysts say that we will dive headfirst into election night chaos. But depending on how the votes come in, mail-in or in person, they can give the impression that one candidate is beating the other at first. And then it could turn out a few days later that the other may be in favor. So let's take, for instance, if the ballots come in for in-person for some states for President Trump, which shows he's ahead. Then in the course of the next few days, the mail-in ballots come in and shows that Biden is ahead, and yet President Trump declares a premature victory tonight. Well, that means over time, the president's campaign may try to challenge the results and litigate the election. Now, this litigation may even go up as high as the Supreme Court, like in 2000 between Bush and Gore. Kristen.
And we all remember that. All right. Thanks so much, Em. Our Michael Herzenberg is checking out voter turnout in Manhattan. So let's go and see how it is. Good afternoon, Michael.
Good afternoon, Kristen. We're at the Park Avenue Armory, and there are no problems here to report, and no lines, really. Take a look. Nothing behind me, and inside it is relatively quiet. We're told about 40 to 50 people lined up when the polls opened this morning, but it cleared up relatively quickly, and no lines at all. A low turnout on this, the last day to vote. The election coordinator attributes that to early voting. By noon, really not even 100 people had cast their ballots on this day at the Park Avenue Armory. Compare that to 400 to 500 at noon on Election Day in 2016.
I'm in a state of shock that there's no line. I expected more people to be here because this is the Election Day.
Easy. No line. It couldn't have been easier. It was great.
This is as we've all heard and seen and read, a tremendously important election to restore confidence in our government, in our leadership, in the White House.
The election coordinator expects things to pick up around 6 this evening when people get off of work, come home, and then come to the polls, she says. But with so many people working from home, it might not exactly play out that way, Kristen.
Yeah, and we've just seen so many people already vote, so that obviously reduces the numbers today, as you were saying. It lends itself to the reason why there should be a number of days that people can cast their ballots.
Yeah, I can't remember it seeming so easy to cast your ballot because there really is no line here and so many open booths inside right now.
All right, that's good news for those who still have not cast theirs. Thanks so much, Michael. We'll check back. After a wild, unusual ride, election night might not be the end of the 2020 presidential cycle, but instead mark the beginning of a new stage in the fight for the White House. Our Washington Bureau reporter Kevin Fry with a closer look.
If we win on Tuesday, or thank you very much, Supreme Court, shortly thereafter.
For months now, President Donald Trump has toyed with the idea that the Supreme Court may ultimately decide this year's election. Teeing up the specter, he has falsely argued that the winner needs to be known by election night, something that may not happen because certain states will take a few days to count their mail-in ballots. He's also raised unfounded claims about voting by mail, a popular choice this year because of the pandemic. If the Supreme Court does step in, it would not be for the first time. A court decision in 2000 effectively halted a month-long impasse in that year's election.
The margins may affect how chaotic this election season gets.
Joshua Geltzer, a professor at Georgetown University Law School, says the larger the margin between President Trump and Joe Biden in the vote tally, the lower the chance for post-election day confusion.
Even those who might be prone to believe President Trump and his allies when they claim that the election is somehow rigged against them or on the verge of being stolen, if it's a blowout, that line gets a lot harder to maintain.
But what if the results are close? We could see lawyers jump into action, fights over which votes to count and which votes to omit. States could tee up two opposing sets of electors, one backing Biden, the other backing Trump. In short, potential chaos. Judith Kelly, the dean of the School of Public Policy at Duke University, says it's not clear that Trump will willingly throw in the towel.
The president has made it very, very clear that he doesn't plan to concede this election regardless of what the outcome is. And that is the most concerning thing ever, because it goes against the grain of all our democratic values and our norms.
So what can you do? Experts say in the short term, know that if it takes a few extra days to find out who won, that does not mean there's fraud or some big problem. Counting votes takes time, especially in a pandemic with lots of mail-in ballots. Another word of advice? Be careful about what you read and share online. Avoid stirring the pot of conspiracy.
Be sure that you understand the sources you're reading. Don't retweet, don't forward news stories that you haven't yourself, one, read or checked around to see if there are other reliable sources backing them up.
In Wilmington, Delaware, Kevin Fry, Spectrum News.
Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are the top tier battleground states. And as we wait for those votes tonight, we've got other battleground states like Florida and North Carolina, where the votes are expected to come in fairly early, possibly giving us an idea of how this election night will go. Our political reporter Gloria Pazmino is watching the presidential race for us, and she joins us now with today's political buzz. And we were just talking, Gloria, and we were saying there's so many different paths to be watching tonight.
So many paths, Kristen, and it's definitely election day, election night, but we might be getting into an evening where it might become election week, election week and a half, depending on what happens with those early states today. So we might get results from Florida and North Carolina, but there's going to be other states, key battleground states, where both candidates have been spending a lot of time in the last week that are going to be really interesting to watch, and that might take a while to complete their count. And one of those states is Pennsylvania. That's where Vice President Joe Biden found himself today, campaigning in his hometown of Scranton. And I just want to quickly explain why Pennsylvania could be such a sticking point. For the first time this year, Pennsylvania allowed no excuse mail-in voting. So hundreds of thousands of people have sent in their ballots, but the law in Pennsylvania says that you cannot start counting those ballots until Election Day. So that counting is underway, and when you combine that with the potential votes that will come in today, on Election Day, it's going to be a really long, drawn-out process. Now, Vice President Joe Biden could have a mathematical setup where he doesn't necessarily need Pennsylvania in order to clinch the White House, but President Donald Trump definitely would need to win the state. He did win it in 2016, so it's going to be really interesting to watch what happens this evening. I want you to listen to Vice President Joe Biden talking about this final race, this final day of campaigning today.
When we left Scranton, moved down to Delaware, he'd say, Joey, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. A lot of people can't look at the kids in the eye and say it's going to be okay. I ran for 3 reasons I'm not going to stop, not keep you out here. Number one, I said when I announced I wanted to restore the soul of the country. What I meant wasn't being melodramatic. All I meant was restore basic decency and honor to the White House.
So again, Pennsylvania, a very interesting place to watch tonight. 20 electoral votes at stake there. So far, 100 million, more than 100 million Americans have cast their ballot early in this election. An election unlike any other. Obviously, Kristen, we are still very much in the middle of this pandemic, this health crisis, all as a result of the COVID-19 virus. And I want to just catch you up on what we have been seeing this morning from President Donald Trump, who was campaigning late into the night last night. I understand he didn't make it back into the White House until the early morning, and he was up at campaign headquarters in Virginia this morning speaking to supporters there. And, you know, this is the president who has been consistently undermining the threat of the COVID-19 virus. And as we have been seeing in the last few weeks during the early voting period, he has also been casting doubt on the election process as a whole. He has been essentially raising questions and raising doubts about the fact that these ballots should be counted, that they are valid, and about how some states are going about their count. Listen to what the president had to say today about Election Day and what he thinks will happen tonight.
And I say it, and I say it proudly, we are rounding the corner, but the vaccines are coming out very soon. They're having tremendous success. Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer, and we're going to have we're going to have a very special year. No, I'm not thinking about concession speech or acceptance speech yet. Hopefully, we'll be only doing one of those two. And, you know, winning is easy. Losing is never easy. Not for me, it's not.
So an interesting show of confidence there from the president, while also acknowledging that obviously he does not like to lose. Nobody likes to lose, but also hearing some similar talking points from what we have been hearing on the campaign, that a vaccine is going to come soon, that we are rounding the corner on the virus. Obviously, Kristen, I should mention that thousands of Americans continue to be infected by COVID-19, and the nation seems to be nowhere near having its arms around this crisis. I want to mention that tonight, as I said, we might be watching the polls for hours into the night. Polls here in New York close at 9. We might be getting some results from other states like North Carolina and Florida, but I do think that we are in for a long evening, maybe a long week.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Senate as well. The Republicans control that right now, 53-47, but you could have a few seats that flip either way there, and if they do, that upends the control of the Senate. So let's talk about some of the tight races there, because they range, they're all over the map. There's a number of them that are very close.
That's exactly right, Kristen. Republicans have held control of the Senate for almost the past 6 years, and being able to take for the Democrats if Vice President Joe Biden wins the White House. And that's because, essentially, if the Republicans are able to keep control of the Senate, it will really make a Biden agenda difficult to get passed. It would really mean that a Biden agenda could potentially stall if Republicans remain in the majority. So, as you said, the races are all over the map. Democrats really only would need to take 4 seats if they want to flip the majority in the Senate. We have races in Maine with Susan Collins. We're watching Arizona with Martha McSally, and we're also watching South Carolina with Lindsey Graham, obviously one of the president's closest allies. So this is the other really big outcome that we could see this evening or over the next couple of days, depending on how voting counts go across the country.
And there is one race here that we're watching very closely, the 11th Congressional District. You've got Max Rose, who came into office in 2016. He's up against Nicole Malliotakis, who is very popular in that district that encompasses all of Staten Island and parts of Brooklyn.
And this is a dead heat from what I could tell. Kristen, I was out there over the past couple of days. Democrat Max Rose, a first-term congressman who campaigned sort of as an independent center-right Democrat, is really fighting for his political life here. He has support in parts of South Brooklyn in the district, but Staten Island has become a problem for him. That's where Republican Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis is extremely popular. I was out there yesterday talking to the Assemblywoman and to voters, and there are a lot of people who were coming out in her support. This is going to be another race that is going to be determined by the turnout, how many absentee votes they get. I should mention, this is another race where we might not see a result necessarily tonight. Both campaigns have acknowledged that there might not be a clear winner for a couple of dates. And here in New York, absentee ballots don't get counted until a couple of days later during the certification process. So it might also be a long, drawn-out fight. I want to mention about this district, as you said, all of Staten Island and parts of South Brooklyn, it did go for President Trump in 2016. In fact, this is the city's only swing district, so we could potentially see it flipping again tonight, depending on how that race goes.
All right, a lot to watch out for. Gloria, thank you. Welcome back. Some of the candidates have been seen voting at poll sites in the city today as Election Day continues. Let's show you this. This includes Republican John Cummings. He is vying for the 14th Congressional District. You can see him here voting. This was just a short time ago. He is challenging Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is seeking a second term in the 14th District, which covers areas of Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. This race for Congress, one of the most expensive in the country. Ocasio-Cortez has raised almost $18 million, while Cummings has raked in more than $9.5 million, and that's mostly coming from donors outside of New York. More than 373,000 Brooklynites turned out for early voting this election. Today, turnout was still big in some neighborhoods. Our Janine Ramirez joins us now with a look at that. Hi, Janine.
I'm here at the Brooklyn Public Library in Crown Heights, where this branch is closed today because it's been turned into a polling site this election day. Poll workers tell us that the crowds were out here early, lined up before the site opened, and so the busiest time for voting so far today was between 6 a.m. and about 9:30 this morning. Priscilla Douglas, who's been working with the Board of Elections since 2005, says she was most impressed with the early voting turnout in Crown Heights, when thousands showed up to the polls. She says so many people, in fact, that some hadn't voted since President Obama was running, and so their names were not in the system, and she had to get dozens of affidavits filled out so that they could vote this time around.
An affidavit is when the person is not in the system and they do not live in the district. They have to go and register. And a lot of people have not registered or voted since Obama. Right.
Are we surprised about that?
No. Yeah, I was. Yes. I was surprised, yes. Because I vote every year, so we had to give out a lot of registration forms so people can get back in the system.
For Marnie Bresler, this is the first election she's working, and with the pandemic, she's geared up for safety.
I am wearing a face-protecting shield, a K95 mask. I've got gloves. I've got this big tub of disinfectant with me. They provided a lot of it. And this is easily the most patriotic thing I'll ever do, so I'm glad to be here.
And poll workers say while daytime voting has slowed down, they expect to see larger crowds after work and at nighttime. If you're online by 9 p.m., you're allowed to vote. In Crown Heights, Janine Ramirez, New York 1.
Janine, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lydia Hu, and we are tracking polling locations across the city today, Election Day, as voting in the presidential election comes to an end. And while there have been some reports of long lines at some polling locations and even reports of some polling sites that opened late today, we are also getting reports about positive voting experiences from New Yorkers, cases in which there was virtually no line and no wait whatsoever. Now, those reports stand out because we have seen during the early voting period New Yorkers waiting in lines for hours upon hours for an opportunity to cast their vote early. But take a look at this. We saw this photo shared on Twitter with us from Susan Fruchtman. She says she cast her vote today on the Upper East Side in Yorkville, and she says it was actually the easiest voting experience in a presidential election she's had in the city. She reports that she was there around 10:30 this morning, and there was no line at all. And Barry Piatoff from Queens also says there is no line in Forest Hills, and maybe that's because of people just like him, people who voted early. He notes that he actually had waited in line about a week earlier for 2 hours so he could vote early, but today in Forest Hills he saw that there was no line at all at the polling location. But over in Whitestone, David Bruder says that he waited for about an hour and 15 minutes. And in Manhattan, Paul Valenti says voting in Hamilton Heights took him only 4 minutes today. Now, there are more than 1,000 polling sites that are open across the city today on Election Day. That's far more than the 89 locations that were open for early voting period. More than 1 million people cast their ballots early in the city. I talked to Attorney General Tish James earlier today, who put that number, the 1 million votes that were cast early, put that in context with early voting across the state. Listen to this.
We do know that this is an unprecedented election. One right now, over 3.2 million New Yorkers have voted as of this morning. That's basically 1 out of 8 New Yorkers in the state of New York. And we know that a significant number of individuals will come out and vote on Election Day.
Anyone heading to a polling location today to cast your vote should confirm their polling site. And you can do that easily by visiting vote.nyc. Polls close today at 9 p.m. And we at New York One want to hear about your experience. Send us your tips to to desk@ny1.com or tag us in your social media post. For New York One, I'm Lydia Hu.
Our Amy Enzi is monitoring polling sites in Queens. She is currently at PS 16 in Bay Terrace. Amy, how's it going there?
That's right. We have moved to the Bell Academy, PS 169 in the Bayside area. It's one of 3 locations that we visited so far, and we have not seen big crowds, but we heard that this location tends to get a bigger scene throughout the day. In fact, in the early morning hours, the poll workers tell us there was an hour wait. So let's go inside and see how it's going now. As you can see, there's not a line outside, but there's a line formed here. People waiting to go in, and we're going to walk into where people are doing the voting, and very carefully because we cannot show you who they're voting for. Of course. So very orderly in Queens. We've been to 3 different schools where people are voting, and the poll workers are on the job making sure that everyone is checked in right. And this is the voting area, as you can see. So no long wait, but there are a lot of people turning out to vote throughout the day. We're told that before 9 a.m., there was a line that wrapped around the block as people came out to vote before they went to work. So this is the afternoon crowd. They're checking in, they're picking their ballots, and then they're making their selection. Very orderly. We've seen absolutely no issues with any of the machines. Somewhat of a wait inside, no long lines outside in the afternoon, as I mentioned. People making their voices heard, and we spoke to some people as they were making their way inside to make their decision.
I think today is an extremely important day for the country, and I'm excited about the opportunity to participate in the voting process, and I'm hoping for a good outcome, and I'm hoping for things to get better in the country.
I think it's the division. The division to me is more the issue than anything else. I don't want to walk and hate anybody. I want to walk in love of everybody, all diversities.
Again, right now, things are nice and orderly, not much of a wait at this location in Bayside, Queens. But a poll worker tells us he expects that will change once people get out of work. Also, there are only 25 voters allowed in this space at one time because of COVID restrictions. And poll sites across the city have similar restrictions in terms of capacity. So please be mindful of that as you head out to vote, that you may have to wait longer because there are limitations and because more people are going to turn out to vote once they get out of work. That's the very latest from here in Queens. Amy Yensi, back to you.
Amy, thank you. Representative Max Rose and Nicole Malliotakis have been slugging it out over a congressional seat in the city's only swing district. Voters will pick their U.S. representative today in the district, which covers all of Staten Island and parts of Brooklyn. The race between the two has been bitter, nasty, and expensive. Rose, the Democratic incumbent, is running for a second term in Congress in this traditionally conservative district. He's been touting his more moderate credentials and is trying to distance himself from the more liberal members of the party. His Republican challenger, Assembly member Nicole Malliotakis, is endorsed by President Trump and has made law and order the centerpiece of her campaign. She has also tried to tie Rose to Mayor de Blasio, even though there was never any endorsement between the two.
Malliotakis, I believe, is the better candidate. I'm voting for Malliotakis in Trump 2020. I support them highly since they support business, they support America, and I'm proud to be an American.
We voted for Max Rose, so we feel like he matches like our values. We're Latino, come from an immigrant family, so yes, we just want somebody who is for everyone.
Was it tough making up your mind with all the ads and all the different negativity in the campaign?
Not really. You know, just you look past all the rhetoric, and you know, and just vote with your gut. You know, look at the platform, see what they're doing, and make a decision.
Malliotakis fared well in this district during her failed mayoral run. Rose points to his successes during his first term, including securing permanent funding for the 9/11 Victims' Compensation Fund. Well, record numbers of New Yorkers did take advantage of early voting. There are those who waited until today, Election Day. Here are their reasons why as we head to break.
It's just way more symbolic for us. Mom was a little different. She's 82, so we did the mail-in thing for her in anticipation of long lines. But we weren't really afraid of the long lines.
I think it's traditional. I prefer doing it on election day, so I feel my vote will be counted that day.
And you had a good, no line. It was quick, huh?
It's quick because they sent me a card earlier. So when I went to the express line straight. I didn't take 10 minutes. I'm done.
While the mayor and the police commissioner have said there is no credible threat of violence, the NYPD is prepared. They're holding a briefing right now at One Place Plaza. Let's listen in.
Our Joint Operations Center will be orchestrating any necessary responses and disseminating any information from our Intelligence Bureau to our cops in the field. In the coming days, there will be additional cops that will be available to respond to any incident. The NYPD, as always, will facilitate any possible peaceful protest. But my message to anyone who wants to cause violence and destruction is, don't even try it. We know who you are, and you will be arrested. For anyone who plans to peacefully protest in the coming days, we are here for you, but we need your help too. Let those who are trying to cause chaos know they are not welcome. Don't let them steal your message. Separate from those agitators, and we will deal with them. New York's finest is without a doubt fully prepared to keep our city safe as we move forward. Chief Holmes here will now say a few words about what she's seen so far today across the city at all our election sites. Chief Holmes?
Good afternoon, everyone. So right now we have medium to light turnout. Everything looks good. One incident not worth mentioning, but with that we have some of the finest, bravest men and women in this department that are out there supporting our democracy. They'll be out there throughout the night, the next couple of days coming. I'll echo Chief Monahan's response as far as people should feel safe in coming out and voting, and anyone that wants to demonstrate peacefully has the right to do so. But with that, the anarchists that tend to blend in and using the legit protesters for cover, we're here and we're here to arrest you. We have zero tolerance for any looting, burglary, anything of that sort, assaulting anyone. That's what we're here for.
We'll take a few questions. Yeah, could you talk a little bit about the frozen zones you guys have planned? When the threshold is to, I guess, start those, who will be allowed in and out of them, how many of them you have?
We have plans that we have set up in case of anything that happens, something that we do not expect to have to utilize, but taken at what we had seen during May and June, we've put together plans similar to what you had seen at Times Square during that period. As the incidents, if anything should happen, if we need to implement them, we will give you further instructions on what we're going to do, but we do not expect to have to.
Rocco?
Chief, can you fill us in on a fracas from earlier today in Park Slope? There's a protester caught on video threatening bodily harm to someone on the other side.
That was a district. There was a truck parked outside with a flag on it. Someone came over. They had words back and forth. Our cops were immediately there. They had conversations, and eventually the person left in the dispute. It's what we do every day. We handle disputes across the city. This was a dispute. It was handled with no arrest, no summons is needed.
Not looking for anyone to close case?
No, closed case.
Tony DeStefano?
Chief, is there any indication on social media whatsoever that some people might try to instigate things ad hoc?
Right now, no. Our Intelligence Bureau, John, has been out there. We have great intelligence. We have not gotten any information of anyone that's looking to cause any problems. There are a few protests that are scheduled for today and tomorrow, like there have been every day for the last, 4 or 5 months. We will be monitoring them, and we will be monitoring everything that goes on within the city. But as of now, nothing on social media that is trending.
Ashley Southall.
Chief, do you all have any concerns about this? There have been a number of groups that have wanted to band together to protect property in the event of the protest. Do you have any concerns about, and there was a group that wanted to come, for instance, with that from out of New York City. Do you have any concerns, or are you hearing about any militia groups coming to the city, and how are you addressing those?
There was a tweet, I believe, yesterday that was out there saying, come to a couple of sites. We're going to go out there and cover locations. We went there. No one showed up. That was someone that retweeted a tweet, and we saw nothing. We have no information of anyone coming out here to protect sites. The NYPD is going to be out there. That's what we do. We are going to be out there in force with thousands of police officers over the next couple of days, making sure the city stays safe. We do not expect to see any repeat of what we saw here in the end of May and June.
Christine, hold on, Ashley. You're going to follow up.
If we could just hear from Chief Madry. I know you have a new position here, and just with new circumstances this time around, what would you say is your message?
Good afternoon. From my position, I've been talking to the community. I've spoken to our clergy, our business improvement districts, just many people in the community, and just assuring them that the police department is here. We value their partnership. We ask them for their support and their help. If they see anything, to make sure they call us right away. Now we're here to support them. So that's from my end what I'm doing, what my office is doing, and we're here to support the women and men of this department.
Are you hearing concerns from the community?
The community's concerned, but we're here, and I'm assuring them, the chief of department, the chief patrol is here, we're assuring them that we are here. We're going to be very responsive. We'll be here all night working, and however we can help the community, and we value their partnership, and they're going to help us through this.
Actually, business owners boarding up their stores, offering SoHo boarded up, Fifth Avenue boarded up. What do you want to say to those business owners? How do you feel about it?
Listen, we saw what happened back in May and June. I understand their concerns, but we do not see that threat that we saw back in May and June repeating itself. We will be out there. We've reached out to all the bids. I know Chief Holmes has had conversations throughout the city with everyone since she took their position, Chief Madry. They are concerned because they saw what happened. They look what happens around this country. But rest assured that the NYPD has got great intelligence, and we will be monitoring anyone that may want to try and cause any sort of mayhem in the city. But we also ask anyone who's out there to peacefully protest to make sure they don't provide protection for those who want to cause mayhem. Nothing does better than a peaceful protester making sure that people do not cause mayhem within their groups, that they get rid of them, because that frustrates those who want to cause trouble more than anything.
Ashley, hang on 1 second. 1 second. Ashley,
Any other
thank you.
enforcement activity aside from the Trump supporter who was causing ruckus?
No enforcement activity at all. It's been very relatively quiet and a normal election day so far.
Chief, is there going to be added protection at Trump Tower tonight?
We always have people over at Trump Tower. As things occur, as the intelligence comes out, that's when we move resources. So as of now, we have no intelligence of anything that's going on over there.
Any more questions? You, please.
What is your plan for securing the bridges as protesters have tended to stuff down the bridge recently?
Again, peaceful protests we want to facilitate. We will move them along peacefully. If people start to cause trouble, if they start to break windows or try and burn things, we will stop them immediately. And again, we're going to ask those who want to march peacefully to separate and point out those that are looking to cause mayhem, that are trying to hijack their message.
Tina Moore.
Steve, we're hearing some signs of possible protests tomorrow. Is it going to be full alert again, or how will this turn look like?
Absolutely. Listen, we all know there's an election today. Who knows who's going to win, who's not going to win, what the results are. We have no intel of any problems right now, but that's why we're all working. Our Joint Operations Center will be operating throughout. As the day goes on, as the night goes on, we will get more information and we will respond. We're going to have thousands of cops working tomorrow specifically for whatever may occur. So we're ready.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good, how are you?
And there you have it, NYPD officials getting the word out that their message is we will have no tolerance for any violence or destruction based on the election results or after in the days following. He said, don't even try it. That was coming from Terrence Monahan, the chief of the department. Also, we heard from Juanita Holmes. She's the new chief of patrol for the NYPD. And she said there was one incident that is not worth mentioning, but she did say zero tolerance for looting or violence. And also Jeffrey Madry, he spoke. He's the NYPD chief of community affairs. And he talked about the partnership with the community. If you see something, say something. For protesters who are protesting peacefully, he said, don't let the ones who are engaging in violence hijack your message. Let's stop this before it even starts. So we'll keep an eye on this. He did talk about a couple of things that they're looking into, but he said no credible threat at all of violence here in the city. We are going to take a look at the forecast right after this. It was just last week that Juanita Holmes was promoted to NYPD Chief of Patrol, and she is wasting no time getting to work. New York One's Dean Meminger spoke to her about the potential for protests after the election. Here's Dean with more.
Here at the Barclays Center, this has been the spot where there have been major protests over the last several months. So for today and tonight, cops are staged in this area, some of the specialized units, officers on bikes as well. And you also have some stores in the area. This store right across from Barclays Center, a clothing store, they are boarding up just in case there are violent protests or any possible looting after the election. I did catch up with the new Chief of Patrol, Chief Juanita Holmes. She says she is not expecting any violent protests, and she says if they happen, the NYPD is ready.
Zero tolerance, zero tolerance. The difference between this past summer and now, we don't have to call for people to come in. They're already deployed. Zero tolerance to that. People will be arrested if they're destroying property, if they're burglarizing stores, if they're assaulting anyone, they will be arrested.
Now, she went on to say that if people want to protest for whatever the reason, they have the right to do so tonight. And the police will be out here today, tonight, and in the coming days.
That their police department is out here protecting them is the main thing that we're out here for today, and that if they want to come out and protest, come out and protest.
Chief Holmes, who is once again the new Chief of Patrol, just receiving that position last week, she says she is ready. Her goal is to bring cops and community together and keep crime down, but she says for now, her eye is keeping everyone safe during election time and making sure if there are any protests that they are done peacefully. That is the latest in Brooklyn. Dean Meminger, New York One.
Dean, thank you. Music can be relaxing, and in such a contentious election year, some members of the Met Orchestra are doing what they can to help improve the overall experience. We'd like to play a snippet of their performance now as we head to break.